allow us to produce nuclear energy in any kind of a quick way, or frankly none at all. But we all know it's the cleanest source of energy that we can have in the United States. And so why shouldn't we do all of the above? Because here's what all of the above does for us. It gives us cleaner air. It gives us lower energy prices. It really does move us quickly away from our dependence on all the foreign sources of oil that we have to rely on today. And it will do more in a very simple way than this big complex bureaucracy that is being outlined in this bill. Why can't we do all of the above? Why do we have to try to establish this giant structure that attempts to put some cap in but really doesn't, when we can do something simple that will help lower prices for Americans while cleaning up the air and moving us to alternative sources of energy? No, that's not what we're dealing with here today. You know, if all of this wasn't enough, I woke up this morning and realized that last night at 3:09 a.m., a 300-page manager's amendment was dropped into the hopper at 3:09 a.m. I have spent most of the day trying to look at this 309-page bill, trying to come up with and understand what does this 309-page amendment to the 1,200-page bill, what does it really do? And so as I started to go through this, I mean, I didn't get past the first page, where on page 16, line 5, strike 1992 and insert 1988, and on line 13, strike 1992 and insert 1988. This appears to deal with the hydropower, and I'm trying to figure out what is the impact of this date change. Nowhere in this manager's amendment can I find out what the impact of that is. Then we get to page 2. Not from components of the National Wilderness Preservation System, wilderness study areas, inventoried road areas, or old-growth stands and late successional stands. So, does this mean that renewable biomass is not defined by what it is, but rather where it comes from? And why was this change made at 3:09 a.m. this morning? We get to page 9. President shall ensure that the total amount of electricity federal agencies consume in the United States during each calendar year, the following percentages shall be renewable electricity. We're going to mandate to every federal agency how much electricity they buy that comes from renewable sources. And in here we've got this year. 2012, 6%, 13, 6%. 2014, we go to 9.5%. 2016, we go to 13%. 2018, we go to 16.5%. And 2020 through 2039, 20% of the electricity that goes into every federal agency has to come from renewable sources. Do we have any idea whether this is possible? I can't find the answer here. Or on page 10, it says contracts for renewable energy. A contract for the acquisition of electricity generated from a renewable energy resource for the federal government may be made for a period of not more than 20 years. 20-year contracts. What if the price of renewable energy goes down? Are taxpayers going to be stuck with a contract that's written today as opposed to what that contract could be negotiated for 10 years from now? I can't tell because there's no answer here. Or we get on page 12, renewable biomass. The term renewable means any of the following. And it goes through this, all of this language. Of course, there's nothing renewable in a National Wilderness Preservation System or a wilderness study area or inventoried roadless areas or old growth stands or late successional stands. except for dead, severely damaged, or badly infested trees. Wasn't this the same language that we had on page 2? And why is it being repeated again? I can't tell as I read through this. So we get to page 16. So that the vehicle or engine is capable of alternative fuel. Of course, we're going to require now every car sold in America, it has to have an engine that's capable of operating on an alternative fuel. So if operating, what if you have a car that doesn't operate on a renewable fuel? Are we going to buy the car back from the American people? Are we going to reimburse them for their cost? I can't tell because, again, this was dropped at 3:09 a.m. and no one probably has had a chance to read it. How about on page 24? There are authorized to be appropriated such sums as may be necessary to carry out this paragraph. Sounds like a blank check to me. Or on page 26, this section applies only to states located in the western interconnection and does not apply to states located in the eastern interconnection to the states of Alaska or Hawaii or ERCOT. So, are we going to have different rates for different parts of the country under this amendment that was filed at 3:09 a.m. this morning? Then we get to page 30. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission shall act as the lead agency for purposes of coordinating all applicable federal authorizations and related environmental reviews. So now we have FERC is in charge of coordinating environmental reviews. As I read this, is that what Greenpeace demanded to be part of this bill? Madam Speaker, I have the time.
Madam Speaker, parliamentary
inquiry. I'm going to get to page 34. Page 34. It says not later than 1 year after August 8th, 2005.
Suspend. Does the gentleman yield for a parliamentary inquiry?
I'd be happy to yield to the gentleman.
The Republican leader was yielded the balance of the time, which I think amounted to around 4 or 5 minutes. He's talked for around 20. I know we have this magic minute that gives leaders a lot of extra time to speak, but I'm just wondering if there is some limit under the rules on the time that a leader may take, even though the time yielded was not 20 or 30 minutes.
It's the custom of the House to hear the leader's remarks.
When we get to page,
Further parliamentary inquiry.
Will the gentleman yield for a parliamentary inquiry?
Be happy to yield to the gentleman.
Gentleman from California.
Now, I know it's the custom of the House to give a little extra latitude. Is there any outside limit to the amount of time a leader might take? And do we have historical records that might be broken tonight? Or is this an attempt to try to get some people to leave on a close vote?
The custom of the House is to listen to the leader's comments.
Okay.
Reclaiming my time, the gentleman the gentleman's had his 30 years to put this bill together, and the House is going to spend a whopping 5 hours debating the most profound piece of legislation to come to this floor in 100 years. And the chairman has the audacity to drop a 300-plus page amendment in the hopper at 3:09 a.m. this morning. And so I would ask my colleagues, don't you think the American people expect us to understand what's in this bill before we vote on it? And so we get to page 34, not 1 year after August 8th, 2005. Now, wait a minute. 1 year later, 1 year